The only business network in true HD.
All right, let's move back to those Beijing Olympics. A terrific showcase for China, no question about that. But don't let that obscure some big problems facing the Chinese economy. What happens when the games are over? Joining me now is Gregory Sichenzia, whose law firm has taken some Chinese companies public. Gregory, welcome back. Good to see you again with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
First problem for the Chinese economy that occurs to me is 10% inflation reported as of today. That's huge.
That is, and it's going to create a problem for them on a going forward basis. But right now, it's still a very strong economy.
Yeah, but they've got to tone down that economy. Because if they don't tone it down, if they don't get growth down from 10 or 11% to a sort of a manageable 7 or 8%, that's their goal, inflation takes off.
I think you're right. I think you're right, and you'll scare off the U.S. dollars that have been, driven in there. I think a lot of these private equity funds have found China to be a safe haven, while the economy in the United States has been a bit cool. And if China replicates what we've done here in the United States in terms of, a stagflation period, they will scare off U.S. dollars.
Well, China's historical concern has always been inflation. They're always very, very worried of just losing control over the economy. Prices rise, you get all kinds of regional problems. That's their greatest fear. You still happy about the companies that you represent, Chinese companies? That they're going to do okay out of this?
Yeah, I think China still represents a huge opportunity. I think the dollar still buys a lot of value there. And that's why you see American investors still flocking to China.
You think the Olympics, I just call them a terrific showcase.
Well, it brings a spotlight to China. I think China, in the mainstream has been somewhat ignored. People know there's a lot of manufacturing going on there, but I think it's become a national, international spotlight now. And so post-Olympics, I think you'll see a more westernized feel to China and doing business in China.
You've got, I think it's about 30 companies, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think it's...
And they're Chinese companies,
They're Chinese companies.
And you've brought them to America. You've got them, in a way, I don't want to get into the technicalities of this, but essentially you've got them represented on the American exchanges.
True. They trade here on the U.S. exchanges.
Has money poured into them?
Absolutely. When we've seen a very slow U.S. economy, U.S. dollars have poured into these Chinese companies because they do represent value still. There's terrific margins. Labor is still very inexpensive, and that's where the margins are, and that's where American dollar is still worth something.
I realize you've got to defend their interests. I understand where you're coming from. You represent them. You've got to defend their interests, but they're going to be under pressure.
They're already come under pressure. I mean, some of these companies have already busted. We've seen a couple of failures now. I mean, this cycle of investing in China has been going on for a few years already. So we've seen our fair share of failures. Although we do defend and we do think it's still a very opportune market, there has been problems. And I think if inflation continues to creep up there, there'll be more problems.
Gregory Sichenzia, a lawyer, an honest lawyer, ably representing his clients on national television. Terrific. Thank you very much indeed, Gregory.
Thank you, sir.
We do appreciate it.